As a wedding professional, do you consistently work events in a state other than your home state? If you do, pay attention because we're going to try to keep you from getting in trouble. Stick around. Hey out there, welcome back to Wedding Industry Law. My name is Rob. I am a wedding industry attorney, and in today's video, we're talking about the legalities and the pitfalls of operating in more than one state. Now, typically, if you're a wedding business, you're an LLC or a corporation, and you're working hard in your home state, then you have likely registered your business entity with the Secretary of State of your home state. So if you're doing business in Georgia and you filed your LLC in Georgia, Georgia is your home state, or California, or whatever the case may be. Typically, and this varies from state to state in terms of what you have to do, but the idea is essentially the same everywhere. And that is you're going to have to register your LLC or your corporation as a foreign corporation or foreign LLC in that other state. That is a process. Sometimes it's called foreign qualification. And the word foreign is not that, you're Chinese or from, the Netherlands or something. Foreign in the sense of a Georgia LLC is foreign to California. So foreign qualification, it's sometimes called, but it's basically you're just registering your LLC or your corporation as a foreign entity in order to do business in that other state. So you would almost essentially follow the same process that you followed in your home state, but in the other state. And we'll get to that a little bit later on in the video, but that's typically what's going to have to happen if you are consistently doing business in a state that is not your home state. So, okay, well then, Rob, what does it mean to be consistently doing business, or what does significant business mean to where I actually have to go through with the step of registering as a foreign company in another state? That's a good question. That is going to typically be state by state. So New Jersey has different set of different set of parameters for what it means to do business in New Jersey versus California. Some states the bar might not be very high. You do one thing and you better register there, versus another where it's got to be consistent and ongoing. It's just going to depend on what state you are. But typically some things that you want to keep in mind in terms of, well, do I need to register there? And probably the answer is yes. The things that you need to keep in mind are you doing multiple events? Is it a one-off thing? Or are you going there, once a quarter, a couple times a quarter? Do you have a physical location there? If you have a physical location there, then the answer is almost certainly yes. Do your contractors live there? Do your employees live there? Do you generate a considerable percentage of your revenue from that state? The more these answers are yes, the more likely it is that you're going to need to register as a foreign entity. You're going to need to do that foreign qualification. You're going to do the registration process in that state. So the more significant your ties are, the more consistent your ties are, the more likely it is that you're going to have to go through that registration process. But why? Like, why is this even a thing? We live in America, baby. Like, why do I should, if I'm good in Washington State, I should be good in Maine. That's not the case. And the reason why, at least, is because if you didn't have to register as a foreign entity in another state, you kind of have an unfair advantage over the companies that are. So, when in your home state for your LLC, you got to pay fees, right? And you can't get out of them. You got to pay taxes. And so if you just allow someone to carpetbag into your state and they're getting away with, not paying fees and stuff like that, it's not fair to the homegrown business. So that's kind of in a way that it's required. That's one of the reasons why it's required. A lot of the reasons why it's required is because a state that you're doing business in, that state wants to keep tabs on the businesses that are doing consistent jobs in that state. They want to know where your headquarters is. They want to know your address, these type of things, just as a record, just like they would for their own home-based businesses. They want a record of who's transacting business there. And one of the things that happens when you register as a foreign entity in another state is that you have to designate what's called a registered agent, just like in your home state. Just like in your home state, you have to tell the state that you're operating in, the other state, not your home state, who's going to receive process for you. And that simply means who's going to receive official letters from the government, who's going to receive lawsuits if you're going to be sued. You have to nominate somebody within that state to function as your registered agent. And that's another reason why that registration process is required. It's just kind of like just to keep tabs on what's going on in that state, even though it's a foreign entity operating in the state. So, all right, Rob, fine. I'm doing a lot of business in the other state. I know I should probably register. What happens if I don't register? Well, it's going to depend. Some people anecdotally operate in multiple states, consistently meeting the requirements for doing that, and nothing ever happens to them. I'm not saying to do that. What could happen if you don't register in a state that you consistently do business in is you could be penalized. So you could have to pay penalties. You might be forced to pay late fees if they do catch you. If the Secretary of State's office of that state does catch you, and you'd have to, get right with them by however many years that you've been working in that state. The other ramification could be in some jurisdictions, in some states, if the entity doing business in that state doesn't register as a foreign entity correctly under the process that we've been talking about, then they're not allowed to pursue lawsuits in courts of law in that state. So if a deadbeat couple doesn't pay you and stiffs you, and you need to go into that foreign state to collect, that state is not going to allow you to use their court system to enforce whatever judgment you want to get from that couple. So the inability to use the court system. Now, you could be sued. Don't get me wrong. You can still be sued even though you're not registered in that state. But in order to be a plaintiff, in order to go after somebody and prosecute somebody, you're going to need to register as a foreign entity doing business in that state. That's typically the ramifications. So you need to weigh that in terms of whether or not you want to register in another state. So then the next question might be, well, Rob, do you recommend that I register as a foreign entity doing business in that state, meaning I have one company and I am registered in that other state only? Or should I have two businesses, one LLC I form in my home state and one LLC I form in the foreign state? And the answer to that is it's going to depend on your specific situation. I just know that having more than one LLC is going to typically create more of a headache. It's going to create more paperwork. It's going to require more registration and fees typically. There'll be tax implications. So in a lot of ways, it might be easier to just use your one entity and apply it towards the foreign in the foreign state as a foreign company. That might be easier for you. Now, there are other pros or positives to having more than one company. Liability shielding one from the other comes to mind at the beginning, but these are conversations that you might want to have with your accountant or your CPA versus your attorney. But as long as you're doing one or the other, you're probably going to be okay in terms of, the ramifications. So operating in different states, do the math. How consistent are you there? What presence do you have in that state? And that's going to determine whether you should register in that state. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the statutes and the laws of the specific state in terms of whether you meet the criteria. I hope that you found the content of this video informative and enlightening. If you did, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the notification bell. Be sure to leave a comment. And new videos come out every Monday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any suggestions for content, please let us know. And remember, at least for the next few weeks, we're going to be having, and we've been having, a Clubhouse room called Wedding Industry Law Hour or Ask a Wedding Lawyer. And that's every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I'm on there answering questions. It's usually a fun time. People just throw all kinds of legal questions about running a wedding business at me. So hit me up on Clubhouse. I'm at Wedding Lawyer. That's every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And with that, folks, we'll see you next time.